All right, so welcome back to part five. I think this is part five of CDC. We're getting up there now. Um, so we're going to have to create two packages here. The first package is going to be an initial loading package, and the second one is going to be the CDC package that runs subsequent for subsequent loads. So basically, you're going to have one package that sets up your CDC and says, "Hey, uh, this is a first log sequence," and then from there on out, basically, you're going to say, "Okay, this is the next log sequence. This is the next log sequence," and so forth. So the first one that we're going to do, um, we're going to have a job for it that's just going to be a one-time only job, and then the subsequent loads, this is going to be basically recurring nightly. So this job is not officially run yet. It's going to run for me tonight at 11:59, and then from there on out, basically tomorrow and onward, this package is going to run at 11:59. Um, so first things first, this sequence container over here. I've seen people do it, separate these packages out, but I feel like they're so closely related that you might as well put them together. The first package over here, um, we're basically just going to that staging table that we created before. Um, this is an execute a SQL task. We're going to connect to our OLEDB connection, connecting to our server, and then we're just going to write a SQL statement right here. Truncate table, and then the table that we're going to truncate is a staging NASDAQ stocks initial, and then we're going to make sure this bypass prepare is set to false. You can parse that query, see that it's fine. Okay. Basically, what that's doing is giving us a clean slate for where our flat file from the Python script is going to first come in, and it basically has got a nice clean place to go. So there's nothing else in there in the way. I'll probably rename this later. I don't know why it says subsequent load, but that should be an initial load. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. So basically, we go to our flat file source. We're going to clean the price column, and we're going to push it into the NASDAQ file. So this is just a basic connection to the flat file. To clean the price, what I did is came up here to the columns, and it was column 0, column 1, column 2. Column 1 was the price column. And so we're using this expression over here. It's basically just a series of replaces. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but this is just personal preference. So basically, I took column 1 and I replaced yeah, basically I replaced the right bracket, the left bracket. I replaced the single quote marks and I replaced the dollar sign. I replaced these all with empty double quotation marks, basically saying that I'm replacing it with nothing. So I'm just kind of stripping it of that stuff. So at the end of the day, what you're just going to see is, if before it looked like a messy dollar amount, you're not going to see that dollar sign. You're not going to see quote marks or parentheses or brackets or any of that. I just stripped it all out. And then I just loaded it into the NASDAQ, the initial staging database. And I mapped the columns. So you'll see it's 0 goes to stock name, column 1 derived goes to stock price, and then column 2 goes to stock date time. Go back to the control flow. So that's just setting it up. That's just for the very first time that the data ever comes from the flat file. And then this is one big sequence container. This is I've got this titled as my change data capture subsequent process. Huh. I'm just looking at my naming conventions here. You know what it was is that I basically copied it over from myself because this subsequent one is a little bit more in depth. So I just need to change this from subsequent to initial. Oh, anyway, we're in the initial package right now, so that's all that matters. Anyway, we basically we brought the data into the staging table, into a clean staging table. So basically, we brought it in, we derived a column, brought it into the OLTP. We have a fact table on the initial load and a fact table. You do want to truncate it. You basically want to have this is just standard practices to truncate it on the very first one. You don't truncate the fact table on subsequent, but you do truncate it on the first. So this is again just another SQL script task. Same as before, bypass it set to false, statement, truncate table, fact, .NASDAQ docs, because that's our fact table. Bring it down here to the CDC initial load start. This is a CDC, this is a control task from over here. Right here, control task. We mark this initial load as start. So there's a handful of things you can select, but you need to mark the initial load as start. The variable containing the CDC state. So if there's nothing there in the dropdown, you select new, and this is going to automatically populate. This is our connection. The table for use for storing the state. This is the table that we had created earlier. If you remember, the CDC states table, and then this is CDC state name, and it's pretty much this will all point and click very nice and easily. So you don't have to really worry about that too much. So from the initial state, then you go to, this is DBO to fact. So this right here, actually you have to have an ADO.NET source, not an OLEDB. This is, I think, one of the only times where this is kind of mandatory. And so we're just taking data from the DBO, NASDAQ stocks, which is our OLTP database. That's our transactional database. And then we're dropping it into our fact database. You need to make sure to map these columns out too, because our OLTP should map since we're using the same naming convention. But you're going to see the ones that I'm not really concerned with too much. The sys start and sys end time. Those are for temporal only, so I don't really care about those. I'm just doing the other ones over to the fact table. And then so basically what we're doing is we're saying we want all the data from the transaction table to be pushed to the fact table in the data warehouse. And then once all of the data is in there, so we basically cleared that table out, everything in there. And we said, okay, we want to initiate the tracking on this table, the change data capture. And then we mark the initial load as the end. Again, using the CDC state. All this is the same as before, same connection in the state table. And then the state name is CDC underscore state. Basically what that's doing is that's just setting up the